Welcome everyone. My name is Mr. Chadwick Robinson, director here with TLC. Today, this is part 2. We're going to talk about carryover volume, okay? Very, very important. I know we have a lot of questions on the carryover volume that comes with the binary compensation plan. So I wanted to make a separate training to kind of go over the carryover volume and make sure that everyone understands the power of the carryover volume, okay? Carryover volume, guys, is volume that carries over every single week, and it can actually start to compile, okay? And you start to have lots of carryover volume. We want you to know that the carryover volume serves like a bank. It's volume that is sitting there waiting for you to capitalize on it. You can actually capitalize on it by earning from it, or you can actually capitalize off of it by advancing through the ranks, which also when you advance through the ranks, you get higher percentages on the binary. So the carryover serves a very, very important role. But I wanted to clear up some questions and give a great training for some of the team members, some members out there in TLC, or maybe if you're evaluating the business to see if this is something you want to be a part of, you can actually understand the carryover volume. So let me give you an example, okay? The carryover volume all stimulates off of the binary compensation plan, which I explained to in another training, which is very simple. A binary is when you build two teams. Binary, two teams, right? You build a left team and a right team. And then every single week, as your team is all growing, becoming binary qualified, this is producing volume, right? Because you have new people coming into the business, you have people who's already in the business ordering products, and you have customers going to people's website producing volume, right? Because they're ordering products as a customer, which produces weekly volume. Now, the binary compensation plan is going to pay you every single week off of the lesser team's volume on your binary, okay? So this is your left team, and this is your right team. So I gave you an example in the binary compensation training, explaining to you how that works. So I'm going to explain to you how the carryover works, okay? So let's say, for instance, here you do 10,000 for the week, like I showed you in the binary, okay? And you do 20,000 on this leg of business, okay? What happens is you're going to get paid off of the lesser team's volume, anywhere from 10 to 25%, right? Let's say you're getting paid 10% off the lesser team's volume. This week, your lesser team's volume is 10,000. So they're going to pay you $1,000 for the week in cash, right? And they're going to subtract this 10,000 from this 20,000, okay? From your strong leg. Now you end up with, let me put it in red. Now you end up with 10,000 left over in carryover, right? On your right leg. You have 10,000 in carryover on the right leg. So what happens is this, okay? This week, you have 10,000 that carried over for the next following week. So let me draw this out for you now to show you how that works the very next week. So the very next week, you have an organization growing, right? Your organization is growing. So let's just say, for instance, the very next week, with your same organization, right? You have your organization. They're growing, right? Everybody's growing. Excuse me if it's a little sloppy. Everybody's growing, right? Let's say the very next week, let's say, for instance, and let me put your carryover over here. Right? You have 10,000 in carryover, right? That's on the right. That's why I put it on the right. So let's say this week, your numbers drop. Let's say this week you have, let's say you have 7,000 on this leg, right? And let's say, on this leg, let's say you have 9,000. Well, they're going to pay you 10% of this, right, of the lesser team, which is what, $700? $700? You're going to make $700 for the week, right? $700 for the week, cash money. And then they're going to subtract this 7,000 from this 9, which gives you 2,000 in carryover for the week. And what happens? Your 2,000 actually goes into this pot on the right. Right? So the week before you had 10,000, now you have an additional 2,000. So now you have 12,000 in carryover. Okay? Very, very powerful. Now, let's say, for instance, let me give you an example. Let me give you another example. Stay with me. I don't want to lose you. Right? So let me show you the power of carryover volume. Okay? Let me show you the power of carryover volume. What's so powerful about the carryover volume and why it's like a bank, right? Let's say, both 2 weeks in a row, your left leg has been outperforming your right leg, which is why you had carryover on the right. But let's say, for instance, the third week, you're looking at your weekly production, right? And let's say, for instance, your weekly production, let's say, for instance, because you get paid off the lesser team volume, let's say, for instance, this time, your right leg outperforms your left leg, right? Because your left leg has been outperforming your right, which is why you're getting carryover on the right. But let's say this time, your left leg, let's say your left leg does, this time it does, 6,000, right? And let's say, for instance, your right leg, let's say it does 10,000, right? Let's say it does 10,000. Now, what's going to happen is they're going to say, okay, hold on. Okay, your lesser leg was 6,000. Well, I'm sorry. Let's flip-flop this, right? Let's flip-flop this. Let's say your left leg, does 10,000, right? And let's say your right leg does 6,000, right? So it's flipped this time, right? So let's say, because your right leg was the stronger leg, right? Now your left leg is the stronger leg in this example, right? So now they're going to say, hey, well, we're going to pay you off the lesser team's volume, right? Now look at your weekly production. Now by your weekly production, your right team is your lesser team, right? So let's say that you will be getting 10% of 6,000, right? Which is $600. But no, that's not true. Why? Because you have carryover on the right. So because you have carryover on the right, they're going to say, when they take a snapshot, they're going to say, hold on. Well, for the week, the actual numbers is 6,000 on the right, 10,000 on the left. But this person has an additional 12,000 in carryover. So really, when we write the numbers up to see which one is the lesser team, they actually have 18,000 on the right and 10,000 on the left. So versus you getting 10% of 6,000, which is 600, you're actually going to get 10% of 10,000. You see? So that means you actually got paid off the carryover. So the carryover stored, but it came back around because your other leg outperformed it. And so what happens is they say, well, we're going to pay you on the 10,000, not the 6,000, because you have the carryover. So we're going to go ahead and cut you a check of a percentage, right? 10% of 10,000 is what? 1,000? Right? We're going to cut you a check of 1,000, and we're going to subtract this 10,000 from the 18,000 because you actually have 18,000, not 6. We're going to subtract 10,000 from this 18,000. Now you're down to 8,000 on the right in carryover. You see? And now you have 8,000 still in your bank just in case your left leg outperforms your right leg. You still have carryover volume to help the right leg continue to be stronger. So you capitalize off of the most powerful leg for the week. And that's very important. I hope that y'all can understand that concept because the carryover volume is absolutely amazing if you have built up carryover volume. Okay? So that's very, very important about the carryover volume. Now, let me explain something else to you about carryover. Carryover can also swing. Okay? If you have a really, change this. If you really have a powerful leg, then maybe your carryover volume will stay on one leg because maybe you have a runaway leg, right? Maybe one of your legs is so powerful you can never catch up to it. But let's say you're kind of balanced between your legs, then your carryover volume can kind of flip-flop. 1 minute it could be on your right, and the next minute it could be on your left. Let me give you an example. So let's say the first week on your left team, right? Let's say your left team and your right team, right? So I'm just going to make a little chart right here to kind of help you guys out. To kind of visually see, right? Let's say your left team. Let's say this is your left team, right? And let's say this is your right team. I'm going to report the numbers right here, okay? Just to kind of give you a visual. So let's say, for instance, the first week, your right team does, let me draw another box over here. I hope this is neat enough for you. But let's say, for instance, actually, I'll do another one right here so I can kind of show you how it swings. Give you a visualization of carryover volume swinging. Okay, so I'm going to put carry over, okay? This is your carryover for the left, this is carryover for the right. So what happens is this. Let's say the very first week, your right team does 1,000. Let's say your left team does 1,200. Your right team. Well, guess what? Your right team outperformed your left, so guess what? Now you have carryover volume of 200. That's a $200 difference, right? But let's say the very next week, it flip-flops. Let's say your left team does 1,500, and let's say your right team does 1,000. Well, guess what? This time your left team outperformed. It's a $500 difference, right? So now you're getting 500 in carryover on the left. But watch this. Because the carryover volume on the left is stronger than the carryover on the right, they're going to take this 200 and subtract it from this 500, right? And what's going to happen is you're going to end up with 300 in carryover because they subtracted this. So this goes away to 0 now. Okay, so for anyone that's thinking, how do you get carryover on both legs? The only way you can't get carryover on both legs. Okay, it's going to wash out if you're not binary qualified. But now you went from having 200 in carryover on the right to 300 on the left. And let's say this time on the right, let's say you do another 1,500 on the left, right? Let's say you do another 1,500 on the left. But let's say on the right you do, let's say, 1,800. Well, the difference is 300, right? So you're going to have 300 that's going to carry over to the right this time. But guess what? You got 300 in carryover on the right, 300 on carryover on the left. That's going to exit out, guys. You're going to end up with 0 carryover. Now you have no more carryover, right? Because your legs are kind of washing itself out. And I explained to you how carryover, you're actually cashing in on the carryover as you're being paid out on it because your carryover is helping you get paid on the stronger leg for the week versus the lesser leg for the week. And that's why these cancel out, if that makes sense to you. So let's say, for instance, you go again, you're at 0 carryover. And now let's say this week you do 2,000 over here on the left, 2,500 on the right. Well, guess what? That's a $500 difference on the right. So now you back up to 500 in carryover on the right. And so this can continue to happen. If you do 2,500 over here, and let's say you do 2,000 over here, well, that's 500 carryover on the left. Well, if you have 500 and 500, it's going to cancel out and give you 0 carryover. You see, that's how it continues to work. But if it's let's say, for instance, it wasn't 500 here. Let's say, for instance, this number you did 3,500 on the left and 2,000 on the right. Well, that's 1,500 in carryover over here, right? So what they're going to do is take the 500 and subtract it from the 1,500, and that's going to give you 1,000 in carryover on the left. Very, very important. So carryover volume actually swings, okay? But the carryover volume is very, very important because it actually helps you go through the ranks. But this is how your carryover volume works, okay? So as you build carryover volume, you want to make sure that you stay binary qualified because you don't want to lose your volume. So let's say, for instance, you have, 10,000 in carryover volume, right? This is your carryover. Let's say it's a cumulative, right? Let's say it took you 8 months to develop this, and you look up, or 6 months, or 4 months, or 3 months, or even 1 week, however long it took you, you have 10,000 in carryover on the right team. Well, I'll talk to you guys a little bit about becoming binary qualified, which is you coming in and sponsoring at least 2 people, and all of y'all paying 40 PV, right? Every month. Now, what happens is if you are one of your 2 people, if you don't have one personally sponsored person on the left, one personally sponsored person on the right, each month doing this, running the 40 PV, you are no longer binary qualified. And when you are no longer binary qualified, what's going to happen is, because you're no longer binary qualified, your carryover volume for the month is going to be erased. And you're going to start back over with a big fat zero and carryover. And you will lose out on all of this volume that is being stored every single week for you. So when you start building a business and become binary qualified, number one, you cannot get carryover volume by not being binary qualified. So if you sponsor only one person, let's say you do this, right? And let's say the person above you, let me give you an example, okay? Let me give you an example. If you only do this, okay, this is you sponsor one person, okay? And let's say that goes on the power leg, and people above you are dropping people down here, and you're getting people. They're starting to form a leg, right? But you've only sponsored one person, but people are steady falling into your organization, right? And it's weekly volume. And let's say, for instance, that in 1 month, let's say in 1 month you develop, 6,000 in carryover in 1 month, right? Well, in that month, if you do not become, well, actually in that week, let's say you develop 6,000 for the week. Well, in that week, if you do not become binary qualified, what's going to happen is your carryover volume is going to wash out, and you're going to have zero. Okay? So, in other words, they do not reward people who are not working the business carryover volume. So, if you want to actually capitalize and start building your carryover volume, you have to at least go and put one other person here, and this person here, and this person here must run on order every single month. Now, if you're struggling in your business to get this leg moving, it's okay, because while you're struggling to get it moving, your carryover volume is building because you are binary qualified, right in that circle. Binary qualified, right? And so your carryover volume does take off. So the moment you start having success in building this leg, guess what? You're going to get paid on all the volume on this leg because you have huge carryover on the right. That's very, very powerful, okay? Now, in the next training, I'm going to give you another training that's going to talk more about carryover volume, but how you can actually use carryover volume to advance in rank. So that's the training on carryover volume. I hope this helped you. Go back and listen to it again if you want to get some more clarifications. I got a couple mistakes in there, but it's okay. Go back and listen to it to get a good feel of carryover volume, and I hope that this training actually helps you, okay? Third training will be the actual rank advancement and how you can use carryover volume to rank advance, okay? I'll see you guys soon.